Good afternoon. My name is Jen DeFranco. I'm the Director of Alumni and Parent Giving, and after updates from our special guests, Father Burrows and Rick Patterson, Tracy Barloff will moderate the question and answer portion of the webinar. We've received several questions in advance, but I still encourage you to submit questions using the control panel Q&A function. Please note, we will not be using the chat function during this webinar. So again, please use the Q&A function located on the control panel. We'll cover as many questions as time allows. The presentation will be recorded and emailed out in a few days. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to Regina and Emmett Daly, the co-chairs of President's Council.
Thank you, Jen. Welcome everybody to our virtual gathering. Regina and I hope that this finds you at home, healthy and safe. And a special shout out to the Holy Cross community that's involved in the healthcare crisis. You guys are all our new heroes. So thank you very much. This is a series of calls we've had for our President's Council. This one in particular is special because we've got some terrific guests today to give you an update on the school. These calls have served two purposes. One, to thank you very much for your financial support and your time and effort on behalf of the college. And two, we feel that you guys are kind of our front line, our biggest boosters, and it's important to give you an update on what's going on at Holy Cross. So I do hope this provides you with an adequate update. Today's call is kind of neat. We've got 311 participants signed up. Generally, we have about 100 for this call, so today's a huge oversubscription, so to speak. Within that group of 311, we've got a large group of seniors from the class of 2020. They are recent members of President's Council, having joined by giving a very, very substantial senior gift. So thank you all. Just a special shout out to the seniors. We all understand that you have been disrupted this final semester of yours, and a number of key events will not go on. I just want to acknowledge that and tell you how sorry we are for that. I will say though that the alumni at Holy Cross are at their best during difficult times, and I would encourage you to reach out to alumni, and we will be supportive through the President's Council as you make your way through this very upside down world. So with that, it's my honor and privilege to present to you Father Burrows and Rick Patterson. Rick is the chairman of the Board of Trustees. These two guys have been working tirelessly to navigate the college through these unprecedented times. And they're here to give you an update on where the college stands now and in the future. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Father Burrows. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Emmett and Regina. It's great to see you from far away here in a beautiful sunny day in Worcester, actually. Spring is certainly on the edge. We have a bit of daffodils and a bit of crocuses coming, and the leaves are just sprouting at the tops of the trees. So there is a sign of hope in the midst of all of this darkness. But the President's Council is also a sign of hope. And really, I can't thank you enough for your support for the college, for me personally. And I really am thrilled that so many of our seniors have decided to jump in and join as well. As we begin, I just want to remind you that on our website, there's if you go up to the front page of our website, there's a COVID-19 bar at the top. It's a gold bar, and all the information from the college is being stored there. And you can run through and see whatever emails have been sent out or notifications. One thing I do also, two things I want to say really. One is, and Dr. Fauci, our famous alum, said it well the other day on the news when he said, the virus timeline is its own, it's not ours. In other words, there's things we can't control, we can't manage, we don't know. We just keep talking about how unprecedented this experience is for all of us. So I'm sure there'll be lots of questions about when are you doing this or how are you handling that? And more than not, probably Rick and I will be saying, don't know yet. So what we are doing though, is we're working on scenarios. What happens if the virus extends into the summer? What happens if it extends into the fall? there's so many things we simply don't know, and we're going to be really planning around scenarios so that we have questions that we're constantly reflecting on and trying to find solutions for, and most likely it won't be any of the things that we can predict. I just say that because there is such a desire for stability, and right now, none of us really seem to have it. As you can imagine, the campus is very quiet at this moment. Living on campus, there are some members of our professional staff for student affairs that live in the residence halls. The Jesuit community is here, and 59 international students are all living in Figge. Now, we're being supported and served by a skeletal crew of public safety officers and people who work in the kitchen and are supporting and helping with meals, with the chaplains and some student affairs professionals, the health center and counseling officers and facilities. So there is a group of us still here and keeping an eye on the campus in these very quiet days. I suppose that we, like many of you, are living on Zoom. It's a very, very helpful way to engage one another, but I also find, and I've talked to a lot of other people, when you're on this methodology for several hours a day, it's very tiring. So I notice at the end of the day, I'm a little shocked by how exhausted I am when the meetings are not in person and you're trying to gauge and manage so many different realities at the same time. But thank goodness we have this technology and that we put it into place some years back, because it has made such a difference in the last few weeks as we've tried to move online with our teaching and learning. We're now beginning our third week of classes online. I know it's gone extraordinarily well from many perspectives, and I also know it's not perfect, and some it's less perfect for than others. As everyone, both faculty and students, are trying to figure this out. And, you know, for those of you, and everyone's working from home, so you have a lot of other pressures and realities you're coping with. But all in all, I'm so impressed with the resiliency of our community and people finding ways around difficulties and people reaching out to one another. For our students, please know that the class deans and members of student affairs and the chaplains and counselors office and our coaches are here, and they're engaging students regularly. All of our public events for the spring have been canceled or postponed. Now, what we are trying to do for our seniors particularly is on May 22nd, we're discussing and trying to organize something creative online. It won't be a commencement ceremony, but we want to acknowledge the very day that officers are commissioned in the Navy, and where so many of you would have received your diplomas, which have that as your graduation date. So we want to do something on that day. And then we want to, and are committed to having a graduation ceremony itself. And we're looking at dates from anywhere in August up to October. So we don't know exactly. We're looking again, we're developing scenarios and then working with different teams and committees to see what we can come up with. But it is very important for us that we do bring our seniors back and that we do celebrate together as many as possible. We've also postponed or canceled reunion weekends, all Maymester programs, our Gateways orientations, summer school in person, although we're developing an online program, summer research opportunities, preseason athletic training, study abroad programs. It's really been a challenging time for us when all these normal activities and look forward to events are not going to be happening. Last week, the governor of Massachusetts reclassified non-essential construction for the city of Worcester and has suspended all public construction projects, including the new Red Sox Stadium. Projects on campus also will cease as of today. So they're in the process now of shutting the campus down for a month. This will go on until May 4th, when we can assess again what to do. So the parking lot that's being developed right to the east of the Luce Center, the Performing Arts Center, and the Joe, the Recreation Center, is also being closed for this month. It's a hard decision, but members of the unions were starting to be very, very concerned about the well-being of their members. And as the state of Massachusetts is expecting its peak of the virus in the next few weeks, it seemed the most prudent and thoughtful thing we could do. We're also working with officials in the city to house medical professionals and first responders in one of our residence halls. Many of those in these categories are concerned about the work that they do and taking the virus home to their families. So we're trying to create in one of our residence halls a place where they can choose to stay overnight and be close to downtown while they do that. We also have a COVID-19 committee in our emergency response team, and we have several subcommittees looking at all the implications of this reality for us. And I really want to reach out to and thank Dr. Helen Boucher, who's a member of the class of 1986. She is a board member on our board of trustees, and she leads the Division of Geographic Medicine and Infectious Diseases at Tufts Medical Center. Helen and I and many others are in daily contact as she gives us advice on things we should be doing and not doing. I'm also very aware of our close working relationship with Dr. Michael Collins, class of 77, who is the chancellor at UMass Medical School here in Worcester, and we're online at least once a week. And of course, we all recognize Dr. Anthony Fauci, class of 1962, and all that he's doing for our country. Many, many of you have asked how we're going to recognize him, and then we're certainly discerning that. Tony already received an honorary degree and was commencement speaker in 1987, but we'll find some other ways that we can honor him and all that he's doing. I did write to him a couple of weeks ago and received kind of a canned thank you message from him because obviously now his staff is answering his emails. As far as the admission of our new class, this year we instituted a new way of doing admissions. We had an ED1 and an ED2 deadlines, one in November, one in January. And we've approximately admitted 50% of our class so far. And this includes almost all of our scholarship athletes. Our total applications this year were just over 7,000, just slightly less than last year, but more than the year before. And we did see an increase in apps from Texas, the DC area, and the urban centers of California, places we've been spending special time and energy to recruit from. The admitted class has been in very active engagement with us. We had double the usual number of students who participated in an online chat with counselors and staff last week, which is an important sign. All of our yield events have been moved online. We're going to have a virtual day visit, kind of that come to Holy Cross for accepted students on April 19th. We're putting as many prospective students in touch with current students as possible in a new program called Connect with a Crusader. We're even working on designing virtual events in key cities around the country. Now, given the current economic and health situation, we have grave concerns about the financial aid needs of our students, both our incoming students, but also our returning students. And we're trying to think of how we might respond to that urgent need. I'm going to ask Rick in a few minutes just to give an update on all of our financial planning. I know that everything we're dealing with has had a significant impact on our bottom line. We're just like every other college and hospital in the country. This is a very, very serious time for all of us. And I know that many of you have asked questions about how we're handling room and board refunds or managing the budgets, financial planning, and endowment management. And Rick's going to talk about all of those in just a second. Before he does, though, I'd like to say something that I'm very aware of the emotional toll that this crisis is taking on all of us. Our employees and our students, our families, our alumni, parents, and friends, our whole larger Holy Cross community. We do understand the importance for counseling, for mental health services and pastoral care, and all of those are available online, and you can come to our website and make connections there. Our chaplains started a weekly reflection series called Closing the Distance, where chaplains and some Jesuits reflect on the readings for the liturgies on Sunday and each of the days of Holy Week. I gave the first one a few weeks ago, and I'm going to have Easter Sunday as well. But if you go online, you can see them now happening every day during this week as well. Additionally, our students and staff can sign up for daily text messages of hope and poems and prayers to the chaplaincy. We have an online retreat for students called Comunitas, which had, at last that I heard, 70 members of students had signed up for that, and it's being run by students for students. And also, I'm very aware that our Student Affairs Division is setting up its own website. They have a plethora of resources they want to share with you, and that's how you can access them. This is a very, very difficult time for us, for our college, for our state, for our country, and for our world. And it does take a certain level of heroism and patience and generosity and resiliency. And those are all values and traits we recognize are so typical of our students, faculty, and staff and alums at Holy Cross. So please know that you're in my daily prayers, and I hope and pray that you stay well and that your families stay well. And now I'm going to turn it over to our board chair, Rick Patterson. Rick, you're on.
I am. Thank you. I can't see me. Father Burrows, thank you. Emmett, thank you. I come to you today from Colorado, my home office here. And before I share my remarks with you, it occurred to me when I came on just about 5 minutes ago that over my head here on my shoulder is a print, which was a gift from the Holy Cross President's Council some years ago. It's a print of the Dinan Library. And I immediately recalled that this is the place where I first exercised the discipline of social distancing. To get away from all those troublemakers. This is where I hid out, right in that place. Actually, over here too is a fun little print, a gift from my classmate Jim Stroud on our last reunion. A really awesome print of Rodin's The Thinker statue. Let me pop this up here. So I have a few things I want to share with you today. Some items on the finance side of life and some things that are going on fundraising and otherwise. So first off, I want to assure you that our campus leaders are here working hard every day to make the best decisions that they can. And the Board of Trustees are actively working with them sort of behind the scenes on a day-to-day basis to ensure that Holy Cross weathers this crisis. You know, it's a bad one. We know there's going to be ramifications, but it's important that we all understand that every decision we make today has implications for the immediate and long-term future, and we're trying to mitigate the effects of any worst-case scenario. Two important financial decisions made early on to share with you. First, we made a commitment to keep all employees on full pay status until the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th. We did mitigate that substantially by having everyone use their lifetime of accumulated vacation and leave time in this fiscal year. Produces real savings. And secondly, we have committed to refund room and board for our students. Those credits will be posted beginning next week, and those refunds will be approximately $7 million. The very quick departure of our students from the campus, as well as moving to online learning, had a meaningful financial impact. We incurred a fair number of additional expenses that we don't traditionally have, and know that we've tried to be especially sensitive to our students with need as this emergency came on. Like so many colleges, Holy Cross is highly dependent on tuition. Our financial underpinning is solid, but we're also vulnerable because of this tuition dependency. And it depends on the longevity of the crisis. Our college has been very conservatively managed for over 50 years and has run at a surplus for over 50 years. Going into sitting in this chair, I said, I just don't want to be the guy that screws that up. Well, I think 51 plus isn't going to happen. Let me pull the numbers together for you for 2020. We'll end the year with $19 million less revenue than we originally planned. And rather than produce an operating surplus of some $5 million, and I note it's not like we take dividends, those surpluses that we produce on an annual basis are reinvested into the facilities and upkeep of the campus, which is necessary in a place as old as ours. So instead of having a $5 million surplus, we estimate we'll have a deficit of some $3 million. This assumes that we meet our annual fundraising goal, and that has over $5 million yet to go. Some of you have asked about our endowment. It currently stands at about $700 million. That's 17% off our high. In comparison, that's versus 29% give or take for the S&P 500. I look over my shoulder here and see we're having a pretty good day today, but who knows if that holds. We have taken, I would say we've reaped some of the benefit of the repositioning of the portfolio over the last couple of years with a variety of strategies that seem to be paying off as we chose to de-risk the endowment to some level because of our dependency as well on the spend out of our endowment. Our liquidity position is very strong, and we've taken steps to provide additional liquidity. That's something everybody's focused on in business education everywhere right now is just, do we have all the cash we need? We're in pretty good shape in that regard. The college has also frozen all capital expenses and has implemented spending freezes and non-essential hiring freezes. In fact, Father Burrows and I will be jumping right off this call to join a finance committee call here in about 45 minutes. And we'll be discussing a number of scenarios for 2021. We will plan for the worst and hope and pray for the best. Let me jump over to some fundraising information. The good news is that our campaign is in terrific shape, thanks to the generosity of folks over the last 5 or 6 years. It's really been a wonderful campaign, and I'm glad we're at the end of it, not the beginning of it, in light of everything going on. Now we shift over, as we approach the end of that, to the annual fund, financial aid, and emergency funds for unanticipated expenses we and our students are incurring. I've had quite a few emails and calls over the last few weeks. Not surprising, right? Our alumni, our family is there to help, and they ask how they can help. And let me share some ideas with you. First, please continue to support our college. All of you are our primary supporters, but we need you to keep coming. We'll weather this crisis, but not without your support, and need your assistance in encouraging others to support us. Tracy had sent out an email a couple weeks back about the emergency fund set up by the college, and that's another way you can help. Boy, it sure was great. The Holy Cross Alumni Association pitched in just last week with a gift of some $10,000 to that emergency fund. Thank you. For the past 5 years, we've hosted a giving challenge every year, and it's been good fun. Been successful. We've added dollars, we've added donors, and it's been a great way to engage with alumni and friends and students. After the events, the tragic events of the women's rowing team in January, it was supposed to be then we rescheduled it appropriately to postpone the challenge. But now we're going to be moving forward and do it on April 17th. And the pivot will be to a platform that must focus on care, hope, in support of our students in a different way. We hope it'll be another great day for Holy Cross. We've set some records in so many ways in this. We hope it'll be a special day to show support for the college. I'll be doing it. My wife Gina will be doing it. Encourage you to do it as well. Finally, I'd like to think about ways we can help our current students, particularly our seniors, as they look towards graduation in a very uncertain employment climate. Emmett was nice to recognize those of you on the call, you seniors. Boy, we sure feel for you. My heart aches. But do know that you seniors, you have a lifetime ahead with all your Holy Cross friends, and you'll love it. We have a pretty awesome network at Holy Cross, and we need to activate that crowd to help our kids getting out of school, for internships, for jobs. Everybody's always been so generous, and I think we'll continue to do so. Our investment office works hard to provide opportunities to keep us all connected and informed. I encourage you to do it. I follow the college on Twitter and Facebook. It is really fun. I think some of the stuff they've been doing for the senior athletes has been great fun, and I think the outreach through the chaplaincy has been wonderful. So thank you for that. I encourage you to check it out. Tracy wrote me last week and said we have some mighty challenging work ahead for all of us to do. Starts with this annual fund home stretch here in the next 2.5 months. But I think we are hopeful. I am hopeful. And our community, volunteers, alumni, parents, friends, students, you've all been incredibly supportive and loyal. So thank you. We're grateful for everything you do. So I think at this point, we're going to jump over, and Tracy has some questions that she's going to moderate for us. So thank you all for listening in.
Unmute. Thank you, Rick. And thank you, Father Burrows. Some of you wrote questions in when you registered, so I have a few of those, and then I've been monitoring the Q&A. So we'll get to as many of them as we can today. Father Burrows, this first one is for you. Is the college pursuing any of the federal or state loan programs?
Yes, we are. Thanks, Tracy. We're going to obviously look at all possible loan programs available to us, especially helping and specifying higher education. Now, the Small Business Administration is looking at a special program. I suspect we do not qualify because our size is, in this instance, too large. But the CARES Act is a very important act for us and for other colleges and universities. And we're estimating that we will be affected there. They will have resources for us. The first take on this level would be, we estimate about $2 million if everything flows as it's expected to do so. But we are keeping our eyes open and using all kinds of resources that are available to us through the state or through the federal government.
Great, thank you. Rick, this one's for you.
Okay.
Do we know about the impact of the postponement of construction on the Joe or the new art center? Will this crisis impact opening dates?
It depends. So I would say if, from what I understand, if it's May 4th that we can get back to business, we should be still in good shape for the Joe because of the mild winter and that we've had and the efficiency of the crew. We were ahead there, so I think we could still be on schedule there from what I understand. We have so much more time to go with the art center. I would hope that the crews could make it up, but you know, many more months, more than one, will probably set us back a little bit.
Thank you. Father Burrows, what provisions are being made, if any, for the fall athletes who return in the summer to prepare for the coming year?
Well, as you can imagine, Marcus Blossom and I, our athletic director, and the Patriot League are all looking at this question frequently because we don't know how long the virus is going to be so dangerous. So obviously we can't, until students can return to campus, we can't really do anything, but we'll keep in contact over the course of the summer. It clearly won't be under a typical schedule. So we'll keep in contact to see when students first can return, and then we have to get the facilities up and running and having staff here to do that. So there's a lot of contingency here, but we're looking at it very closely.
And along those same lines, there are several questions online about whether or not the college has canceled the fall study abroad program or summer research programs. And so I think, just like Father Burrows said about the summer athletes, we have not made a decision on those yet. So we are still looking at all those various scenarios depending on sort of the course of the virus over the next couple of weeks. But we are thinking hard about what we might do if we need to postpone or cancel some of those programs. But Father Burrows, what provisions are being made, if any, if students aren't allowed back on campus this summer, or if the academic year is impacted in some way? What are we doing to sort of think about those scenarios?
Well, we're certainly developing now. I was just on the phone, or a Zoom call with Margaret Frigi and others earlier today, and we have another meeting tomorrow just to look at a whole set of scenarios. What happens if the summer is truncated because we can't operate as normally? What happens if fall has to start later? Or what happens if there's a rebound on the virus and it hits us in the winter? So we're trying to look at our whole year and come up with a whole variety of scenarios. And they're all dependent on one basic fact. It cannot return to campus until it's safe for students, faculty, and staff to be here. And that will, everything falls from that point. And then everything else after that, we're just going to be trying to figure out how best to function. So there's a lot of big questions we have as well.
Rick, perhaps you can take this one. Acceptances went out to our newly accepted students recently, and they've all been notified of their financial aid packages. What happens if we find that there are many students who, either returning students who need more aid, or the aid packages that, you know, the accepted students got might not meet the needs given the crisis that we're going through? How does the college prepare for this?
We've been talking about that for a few weeks. That was something that was immediately clear to all of us, that was a likely outcome, that all these scenarios would happen. So we're going to deal with it as best we can. You know, we don't have unlimited resources, but we have substantial resources. And certainly our intent is to do right and best by everyone we possibly can. I think we know this is a unique and special time, and we'll, within the limits of what we can possibly do, we'll do whatever we can possibly do to make it work for families and students.
Father Burrows, I don't know if you know the answer to this one about the numbers of first generation or underrepresented students in the current accepted class.
No, I don't know. I think it was down a bit. What I saw at earlier numbers in terms of applicants was down. I'm sure that the concerns about college and finances and so forth were a concern there, but we don't have enough information on yield now, so I don't really know where we stand. This is, as you realize, students have a time now to be making their decisions, and we just haven't got full data yet.
I just want to read a comment rather than a question because I think it's important for everybody to hear, and it speaks to one of the ways Rick asked asked us to help. And this one says, since we're all at home, it would be a great time to offer seniors information on the job market and advice on careers. Perhaps a career center could set up programs for seniors to reach out to alumni to help in their job search or just give career advice. We all have the time, so please put us to good use for our future leaders. And I wanted to read that because I think it's a really important sentiment. And it's important for the seniors on the call and others, the parents on the call, to know that we are putting lots of resources into our Career Development Center and our Alumni Career Development Center to make sure that we are present and active with our students and our young graduates these days. These are some great, I think there are some great opportunities for us to make even more connections with our alums. As Rick said, we have an incredibly loyal network, and now is a good time to tap into them. So stay tuned. I think that there's lots of ways we can take advantage of leadership here. Let's see, I have a question. Rick, maybe you can take this one. Have we considered asking parents who are in a position to potentially waive the room and board refund as a donation to the emergency fund? Yes.
It's the short answer. And we actually had a fair number of folks step up and volunteer pretty quickly in that regard. It's a very generous thing to do, and for sure we could use it. So it would really inflate that senior year gift deal, wouldn't it? Wow, that'd be awesome.
Question for either one of you, and I don't believe this is the case. Will you be extending the date by which accepted students need to decide on attending Holy Cross beyond the May 1st deadline?
Tracy, we have not done that as of yet. That's not, acceptances are coming in. We're going to hold to our set date at this time, and if we have to adjust it later, we will.
Great. There was a great suggestion, although I think the format does not allow us to do this, to ask one of the seniors to please speak about the way Holy Cross community has prevailed during this time. But I would ask perhaps one of you who wants to do that to either do it in the chat function, or you could email one of us at some point. It's really good information for us to have. Question from a parent, I believe. When will the seniors, or maybe it's a student, when will the seniors be hearing from the school with updates about graduation?
Well, let me go back to where I began. Everything depends on how the virus proceeds. And until it's safe for us to gather, we can't plan. But what we are trying to do is, as I mentioned earlier, we are planning to do something online on the 22nd just to celebrate that day, not a commencement. We're not trying to mimic commencement. We're trying to do something kind of fun and engage one another. And then we're looking at scenarios from anywhere from late August into October. When would be a time when we could gather people on campus? And clearly with the movement of this virus, it could be that it's down on the East Coast, but up in the Midwest at a different time. So we're going to check. There's so many variables here. I just want you to know we do have a committee. Right now we're at one level, and then we have a lot of subcommittees. And as soon as we start to get some parameters, what I suspect we're going to do is try to get the DCU Center for more than one date and see how long and how we can hold that venue. And work from there. But other schools are already talking about the same scenarios, whether it's in August or maybe up even into October, of when we might want to do something here in town. The other question that goes with that one is also, we've talked about particularly the 25th and the 50th reunion classes. They don't get to celebrate yet either. And maybe there's some way we could combine all of this in some Holy Cross weekend that would just cover a whole lot of constituencies and highlight baccalaureate mass, highlight senior awards, highlight graduation, highlight something for alumni, in a way to have a huge celebration of who we are as a community. But all of these are just ideas at the moment, and they're parts of scenarios we're trying to play out and see what's possible.
Thank you. A question about, are there any potential limitations on the donation of room and board if the funds came from a 529 plan? Actually, and I can answer that because we've had a couple of parents call us about that, and our recommendation is that you look into that on your own with your own tax advisor. What will happen is that credits will be posted to the student's account because technically they are the ones accountable for the costs and the refunds or the bills. They may not be the bill payer, but the students have to actually approve that it becomes either a credit to the account to be used for next year, or that they would like a refund check. And so if it's a refund check and somebody wants to give that back, they can certainly just give it back as a donation to the college. I mean, they can turn around and either give us that check or just write another check to the college. So I think it's probably important for you to check on your own about the issue on the 529 plan. Question about what are the plans for housing in light of the possibility that many students may not be studying abroad next year because of the pandemic? Father Burrows?
Yes, that's a very good question, because it's one of the many variables we'll be looking at. For example, some students may not be studying abroad, but some students may not be returning. We don't know what the size of our incoming class will be yet. So we have a lot of variables going on right now as we're trying to assess what to do here. What we had been looking at a kind of rearranging a couple of our residence halls now. We have looked at an eventual, the Jesuits moving out of Ciampi and Ciampi being redone into a residence hall. That certainly wouldn't be available by next fall. But we are looking at a whole variety of things right now and trying to figure out resources we have on campus and what are the resources off campus, should we have too many students.
Thank you. A question about the focus of the one-day giving challenge. I think it's important for me to, I'll say what repeat what Rick said, and we've purposefully decided this year that it just doesn't make sense to call this a giving challenge, even though that's been a great way to engage our constituencies in the past, and it's been fun to have people sort of challenge each other. It just sort of didn't feel appropriate at the moment, and so we sort of changed the focus of this to be just a day of giving and support. And we're going to be focusing the energies around, I think, some of the most important ways alumni and parents and students can help, and that's by a gift to the annual fund or a gift to the emergency fund. And the other one is also a gift to financial aid. We are certainly concerned about the impact that all of this will have on our students that are in need of financial help in order to attend. And so we want to make sure that we've got the capacity to be able to do that. So thank you for asking that question. I think that's an important one. I'm just going to look one more time. I think I've answered most of these questions. A lot of comments around careers. I just want to let everybody know that. So we are hearing you loud and clear. It's important. It's clearly on the minds of everybody, and it's on the minds of those of us on campus. I also want to let people know that I think Rick mentioned it in his comments about the various ways we're reaching out. There's an alumni publication that came out this week with resources, links in it, resources for folks. The deans are sending things out. So I think it's important for you and for those of you who are parents to tell your students to really be connected, connect to email, connect on social media and places that we're trying to convey and send information. I think it's incredibly important. Information is, people are craving it right now. Let's see. Because required minimum distributions from IRAs and 401s have been suspended this year, many retirees may want to rebuild their portfolios, which have taken a hit. I suggest individuals make tax-deductible gifts. Can you speak about this? Well, I do think that there are ways one can still use distributions. You're right, they have been suspended for this year, but there are other ways one can make tax-deductible gifts. If this person wants to either call me or call the development office, we'd be happy to talk to you individually about something if you have something in mind. I do have to say, from a development perspective, some of you probably got our direct mail appeal, which landed about a week ago. It was kind of out the door when this crisis started, so we didn't stop it. People have been generous and people have been incredibly supportive. We're all understanding the need for supporting organizations in this time of crisis. All not-for-profits are struggling. Employees are struggling. Employers are struggling. So I have to say it's been a time of, it's been really edifying to see how people have come forward to help in any way they can. So I want to thank you for your continued support and thank you for that question. Is it possible to explore virtual internships if appropriate and practical? Father Burrows?
Actually, can I take that one, Tracy?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Actually was working on that this morning with Pam Mahern in the internship office and others. So she is ahead of the curve and has been talking with host sites about doing virtual internships to the extent they weren't going to be open. Certainly there have been cancellations on the internship front. There have been people who said, we just don't know. But there are ways to do it. People are learning how to conduct, business in a virtual fashion. So I think we're on it. It's worth pursuing. I've also in touch with the New York Leadership Council folks this morning where, maybe this is a time where they can do things differently to really turn up the heat to create a lot more spots for our students. They have the resources available there, and that network is just so terrific that I would hope they could really produce some opportunities. I would just say additionally, maybe it's a time to think more broadly about the kinds of activities that we support our students in doing. On the one hand, we want them to grow and have valuable experiences in a professional capacity, but maybe this is a time too when we can afford, not so much the college, but I was thinking the Leadership Council specifically, opportunities to support our students as they do other things to help people in Metro New York.
Terrific. I think I've hit most of the questions that have come in on the Q&A. Some of them are repeats. Any final parting comments from Rick or Father Burrows before we turn it over to Emmett?
Yes, I do have a few. Some of you, particularly our students, faculty and staff, were aware of remarks that I gave last week to the whole campus community. But maybe some of our members of the President's Council were not, did not see those. I jokingly remarked that my younger brother and I were on the phone. He lives near Seattle, and we were chatting, and he said, Phil, he said, I never anticipated I'd be giving up going to church for Lent. It is the sad reality of our experience right now that so many ways in which we celebrate who we are as people of faith and who we are as communities of faith have been denied us because of the dangers of gathering. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other resources. Certainly we have resources here at Holy Cross with these reflections on Sunday and reflections on every day of Holy Week. And clearly we have opportunities to, with our families, to gather and have times for silence and prayer, or maybe reading the scriptures together these sacred days. Yesterday at Palm Sunday, I was reading through the whole gospel, which is the Jesus Passion. And it was, reading it out loud just to myself was important. And I hope that we can find creative ways for, this is a moment of, and for all of us, it's really a moment for families and lay leadership to how do we worship together? How do we pray together when we don't have the ability to gather as a community? And in so many moments in our history across the world and in many countries where faith is challenged so directly, this is what people have to do. And so it's not a vacation from faith. It's in fact a season when we need it more than ever, when we need it because of the uncertainty of our lives. And, I must say, in my prayer this morning, I was just thinking about the reality of death is all around us. And it's something I'm 70 years old. I keep thinking it's something down the line, but it isn't necessarily down the line. It may be closer than I think it is. And certainly for people I know and loved ones, and two of the grandfathers of our students have died this past week from the virus. So it is a reality. So let's gather as people of faith in small units by ourselves or with families, really to turn our hearts and minds to God and one another.
Rick?
I can't top that. Doesn't get better. Thank you.
Emmett?
Thanks, Trace. Again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today with Regina. 300 Crusaders. It's very reassuring at a time that's a little unreassuring. But again, thank you for joining us. We will continue to have these meetings, keep you informed. And until then, stay safe and stay home. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy Easter.